welcome to the new episode of the Exports Insights podcast. Today with us, we have Antonio Josep Pagan, who is an export manager in Gustav Wolf company. He will tell us more about that. And we are very glad to have a practitioner, someone who is dealing with exports on daily basis for over 2 decades, almost 3, not to go too much into it's coming to 3. So I would go right at it. Welcome, Antonio, and thank you for accepting being the guest of Exports Insights.
Thank you very much, Vasco. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Let's dive into it. So maybe you can tell us a little bit, from what I've heard, Gustav Wolf is one of the leading international manufacturers of wipe ropes for elevators, but you have with them on several occasions and throughout the years. So maybe you can give us a little overview of what you do, where you're located, and what your role is as an export manager.
Absolutely. Again, thank you very much for the time, and I hope we can have a good conversation and explore all the topics related to export and sales. And yes, so as you mentioned, I'm working for Gustav Wolf. It's a German company, quite old, let's say. It started in 1887, so getting close to 140 years of business, mainly focused on the elevator sector, making steel wire ropes, but with other sections and divisions, because we make our own wires, steel wires, but it's mostly connected with the industry of the steel, producing wires, and then these wires can be used in different industries. And my job is as export sales manager is to coordinate the strategy, to participate in events where the company is represented, and define the channels to the market, be it through our own operations or with distribution partners all over the world. And then, of course, monitor the results, support them, and define what is the next steps in our plans for the future. And yeah, very, very happy. It's been a couple of stints with them. There have been some changes in the company, and I got back with them 3 years ago, and definitely happy with how things are going. A lot of work, very busy, as the economy is of course always complicated, and you have to adapt and be flexible and find new sources, new channels, new options to sell. That's our job.
Thanks for this. I have to ask the tough question. When I was looking at your CV, so I saw that through different roles, like you have been in Gustav, you have been in other companies, and in some you scaled revenue from 600,000 euros to 17 million, or per country you had 300 to 2 million, 300 to 700 million per country as you worked. My question is, what was the primary shift in strategy or structure that allowed you to achieve such levels of exponential growth in 2 years in each of these companies?
Yes, I would say it's always a lot of it is hard work, definitely, but you need to have a plan, you need to have a strategy for sure, and you need to find probably the best location to put your efforts in, where you're going to get the best return. In some of my experience in the past, I was hired basically to push the sales in the export department. Some of the companies where I worked were strong in the local markets, in the Spanish market or in Europe, and they wanted to expand their model and their product sales outside. So growth was definitely more visible when you start from a low position, let's say, and low results. And then if you are successful in building several partners, then you can see growth relatively fast. I'm not saying it's easy, but selecting the right partners and providing the support so that they can grow. At the end, it's a lot of the work is done by the partners with your support, and the selection of these partners is what brings probably the quickest and most sustainable results. So I wouldn't say I'm lucky. I probably made the right choices to work with the right partners so that we could develop the business on the export side in a solid way. And then finding also good customers that trust you and trust the process, where you can provide a good product. At the end, it's all a chain. I think the name supply chain is very well brought, because at the end, it's a chain that you have to produce a good product. You have to provide a good service right on time, so that the customer can use it also on time, sell it to their own customers. And if everything works well and they trust that you're going to provide the product on time, then they will trust also the product. Then you can grow with them. It's what, and at the end, provides those results.
You mentioned partners. You mean like selling partners, or within the company partners, or what do you refer selection of great partners?
I like to talk, and I learned some years ago that you can consider a client or a customer could be, you think that they are the same, but client is more, I would say, like what lawyers tend to do, which is, okay, I sell one time a service. For me, a customer is more a customer that is long term and can bring business over time. And for me, that's the type of relationship I want to build. In terms of partners or distributors, it's the same way. I try to build a long term relationship, and I was mentioning partners because of this type of relationship of long term. It's a friendship, it's a trust building, and it's can be internal, yes, but I mostly considered it on the external side. Let's say a distribution partner, someone that can behave as if they were part of my company, although they are not part of the company, but they feel the product, they feel the brand as if it was theirs, and then they represent it in their own market or region in the same way. So that's what I want to build, this type of relationship where they feel that they can trust me, provide the right product and the right service, and then they go to the market in the same way.
So, I mean, interesting, client versus customer. But on this side, you have been able to establish new business from South Africa to the Middle East to Latin America to Scandinavia, and you're talking about partners. What would you say are there any cultural difference in doing business, or what are the key ones, let's say, to take care of? I know there are plenty. As I see, your latest role since last 2 years is to establish new distributors in India, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan, South Africa, Israel, Greece, and Egypt.
Yes.
And prior to that, you worked in Scandinavia, Spain, Middle East. So how do you handle cultural differences? Are there cultural differences in business?
Definitely. There is. That's one of the first things you need to understand, that from experience, I've worked with companies that maybe were US based companies, and they wanted to transfer their model to, for example, Europe. And they were thinking, well, in terms of size, population, it's the same. So let's transfer the model that is being very successful in the US. Let's just transfer it, and maybe even bring a general manager from the US, base him in the UK, and handle the business from there. And it didn't work because we're talking about cultural differences, like you mentioned, languages. In Europe, we might consider that we are one EU, but it's different cultures, definitely different languages, different behaviors, different ways of doing business. And that's, for me, that's the first thing you need to understand, that you need to be flexible. You need to be willing to learn all those differences. You cannot come and say, no, I know more than you, and I'm going to push to you how to do business. No, you have to, and this is again also something, and we're coming into more the sales perspective. I had a friend, and when we were young, and he knew that I was in sales, and he would tell me, no, I would be very good in sales because I talk a lot. And I would tell him, you're wrong. In sales, what you have to do is listen and be willing to learn more than talk a lot. We have the image maybe of the American films where you have this typical used car salesman that tends to sell you anything, and ice in the poles. That's not really in most cases what happens. You have to listen. You have to be willing to understand what are the needs, and understand that maybe in some parts, like you said, if you're in the Middle East and you have to build a relationship first before you do the business. And maybe in Scandinavia or Northern Europe, it's very more professional, and the relationship is, you go there, you do your business, you prove that you have a good product and good price and good service, and that will do the job. In other parts, you need to consider that it's very funny, when you try to organize a trip, you have to calculate one visit per day, because they're going to want to be with you the whole day, the customer. If they want to understand who you are, if they can trust you before you do the business. In other parts, you have to, be able to party with them and drink a lot before they will trust you and want to sell you. Once you do that, that's what you need to understand. How is business done in every part? How are people? Because you're doing business with people. So how are those people behaving? How do they expect you to behave to be able to, again, build this trust and this relationship? And then you can sell. Because at the end, nowadays, everybody can get online and find a product and a price, but my job is that they want to buy from me, that they want to buy from my company. And for that, you need to build this type of relationship.
Very interesting part you mentioned. Maybe we can come back on specifics per region, but you pointed out so many aspects, one on the listening and sales. I was thinking like all these characters you have in you, like you have to party, you have to build trust. Somewhere you're more traditional, somewhere you're more silent, somewhere you're more extensive. So since you've been doing this for 25 years, how do you, I don't know, adjust a team or prepare or have a partner in your team that you join in when entering the new market and building the trust that would be more appropriate for that market? Or are you just doing it for yourself? Or maybe how are these preparations going in entering your markets?
Sure. I mean, unless you have already someone there from your team that can support you and maybe, and again, you have to listen, you have to understand from him, well, this is how you need to behave, or maybe don't talk too much, or maybe don't mention these topics or whatever, don't talk about politics. You have to understand all these parameters before you start in this market. You have to, I always try to prepare myself before I go somewhere. You need to understand what is the business, how things are going in the country or in the region, if there's any political issue that you don't want to, but also understand maybe what are the news around so that you can set up a conversation with that customer. So talk about, okay, how business is going. If they love football, then find a team that you think they could be supporting. And at the end, that's how you prepare yourself. You have to be open to all these points, because at the end you're going to have to talk about it. You're not going to talk only about business. You want to, again, find a point of where you can connect to these people. So if you have someone definitely that can help you, if not, you should prepare yourself at least to be able to have a decent conversation with your partner, with your customer, with the end customer, so that you can again set up this trust or this relationship where they will want to buy from you, or they will want to have a relationship with you. So again, it varies. It varies from region to region. In my case, I'm usually responsible for all that. So I prepare myself, or I talk with someone. Experience gives you a lot, definitely, because if you're traveling a lot, you also are more, say, permeable to these concepts of understanding, of listening, or being more in tune with, okay, what is going on around me? What should I listen to, let's say, in this region, in this country, so that I can then transfer it. And you become, I wouldn't say an actor, but you do put a mask where you behave maybe differently, and what you should be doing in your own personal life to present yourself also to the market, or to the customer, or to your partner, in a way that tends to bring both together. And at the end, this filters inside. So you, maybe at the beginning, when you were young and you're inexperienced, you try to behave in a certain way, but at the end, you absorb it, and then you are more flexible, you are more open, you are more of a listener.
I will come back to some of the points that you raised, but in more detail.
Sure.
Would demand an answer. But you also, do you think that, you said it's experience, it's, Spanish, English, German, Italian, Portuguese. Has this multilingualism that you have fundamentally changed the approach you have to negotiations and building?
I would say for sure. In two aspects. One of them, I think, traveling and the languages gives you a more open mind. You stop thinking that your environment, your close environment, is the only true and good thing in the world. You start seeing that everyone is connected, that everyone has their own positives and negatives. When you learn a language, I think it opens also your mind to ways of different thinking, different cultures, different foods, and all those things at the end form yourself as a more open-minded type of person. And then that's in one direction. And then languages per se, as a one topic in particular, I think when you go to a customer, and of course everybody now defends themselves in English, and in business you have to definitely talk English, but if you talk with them, if you speak their language, they feel a closer connection, I would say, even if they don't know it, if it's just subliminal way, they will think, oh wow, okay, he's taken the effort to talk to me in the language. Even if sometimes what I do is I learn 4 things, 5 things from the different languages. If I'm going to go to, I don't know, to Turkey, I know how to say hello, thank you, goodbye, I would like some water. I mean, just the basic phrases in every language or every country where you're going, that opens up a little bit the heart of the other person, and says, oh, thank you for, even if they don't express it, you can feel that they are appreciative of that fact, and it makes you that first step a little bit easier to connect. I definitely believe in that.
So if you're, for the ones watching and want to become part of the expert sales, international sales, learn more languages and get to know and prepare.
For sure, for sure. It's definitely, I mean, we all know that you need to know your English for sure in the best way possible. That's confirmation here for sure. But don't stop there. Even for your own self, even just for your own self, because it opens up when you are traveling, you feel better if you understand what people are talking. If you can go to a restaurant, if you can go to it opens up your mind to different experiences. And then in business, for sure, it's a plus that brings that connection with the customer or with the stakeholder.
Thanks for that one. I would like to go on entering new markets, because you have been responsible for opening new markets. Are you always working through these distributors and local, or how do you enter a new market? Maybe.
Yes, that's an interesting topic. Of course, you have to analyze the situation. There are certain markets that culturally or logistically, for proximity reasons, just for industry reasons, they are closer maybe to one. In our case, we are based in Germany, so I would say that Netherlands, Scandinavia are relatively close, so you can work with them directly. So you set up your channels in that way, direct customers, and then you have to visit the main customers and then go to lower tier, etc. But I always felt that's maybe you get more profit, your margin is higher, you get direct sales, but it's definitely more work. Having one distributor or one partner that can handle all of that, instead of you having to deal with 200-300 customers, it's definitely a different approach. You have to define if you want to go direct to market or if you want to go through a distributor, be it because of size, be it because they want to deal with a local person in their local language, with their local currency. That's another issue, of course. If you have a certain bureaucracy, a certain licenses, quotas of imports, then you have to deal with a partner that understands all those points. So you have to probably go region by region, country by country, and it's different. So my job is to understand what are the needs from our perspective as a company and what would be the benefits of going one way or the other. So there's not one single rule. Most of the times what you do is you do your research, you have a network. After, again, 25 years, you know a lot of people in the market, so you contact them and you say, okay, I would like to go. India is now booming, so how should I do it? Do you have already someone there that you know and that you trust? Could you give me the contact? And then you start that communication and you define if it's a good match or if it's not a good match. So then another option is definitely trade shows or industry related exhibitions, chambers of commerce, where you can support yourself with that knowledge, that experience, and they can guide you in one way or the other. In our case, we can define, okay, I set up my own branch or my own subsidiary, do direct business, or I use a distributor or a partner locally that can handle that. And you define in each case what is the best way. I would say margin wise or profit wise, doing it yourself has certain advantages for sure. In terms of risk, you have one contact that you trust, and for the payments and that are going to pay on time and do a good business and know the market, then definitely there is less risk. You handle just one relationship and they can handle the whole local market. So it depends. You have to make that decision and also monitor it. It's not like, okay, I make it one time and I forget it. No, you monitor that everything is working well, the results are as expected, and that you can work for a long-term period.
Maybe on the bad side, but have you had disputes or taken out a partner, or how do you?
Yeah, that's part is like when you have to tell someone that they have to get out of the company. It's always, I wouldn't say like doing it with a family relative, but if you have been working for a long time, it's tough. But yes, definitely it has happened. It's happened where maybe we started with a small partner in a big region, in a big market. They grew the relationships. A bigger distributor came over and wanted to work with us. we try usually to stay as close to our partners as possible, but we have to be flexible, and we understand that if someone that can cover, let's talk about the US, for example, that can cover the whole of the US versus just a couple of states, it's business-wise the right decision, but we try to make it work in a way. And then it has happened in the past where they wouldn't accept this change or this possibility of working together with a bigger partner, and we had to let them go. And there, some regions are more litigious than others, so you have tougher discussions than others. But yes, it has happened. Also, maybe in the past, for whatever reasons, you sign an exclusive agreement, and exclusivity is now, it can go both ways. They can take advantage sometimes of that and not do the hard work because they keep the brand and they do their business not so aggressively, let's say, or the results are not as good. And then you have to discuss with them, okay, either you cancel the exclusivity or you have to look for someone else. So that has happened, of course. That is why you have to monitor all the cases, because at the end you can make a decision in the beginning that looks fantastic and it might not work out for both sides. So you just have to try to keep always the relationship working in the most ethical and professional way.
So on this topic, I mean, do you have, and if you're willing or able to share, maybe like a unifying methodology that you use for vetting and I don't know, successfully launching a new distributor or agent that would ensure alignment with the corporate strategy?
Sure.
Are there any tips, or maybe it's a methodology wider or simpler?
I mean, at the beginning, and usually depending also on the size of the company, the size of the team, you can prepare a more, say, technically oriented or more professional KPI analysis of what are the points or the checklist that you need to have with a company. So I have to be honest, at the beginning, maybe it was more a gut feeling, and you would sit with them and you would spend time with them, visit their location, and then you would say, okay, I think it makes sense. Sometimes you have to choose between a small distributor that will feel that your product is the main product, so they will put 100% on the effort on it, or other that is huge distributor that you are just one page in a 100-page catalog, but they give you all that availability in the market, different locations, sales managers that are positioning your product in the market. So you have to choose between all of those. And at the end, with experience, you come up definitely with, and we do have, we created a checklist, let's say, where in our industry, you need to say, okay, are you in this same industry? For sure. That's one of the points. Do you have that type of experience? Then you check, okay, what is your warehouse space? What is your professionalism? How many sales guys do you have? What is your training? At the end, you have to match. We have our own facility where we do this same job that they are doing. So we try to make it as professional as the one that we have, or better with our partners. So we need to understand all these points, and we need to go in terms of what is their size, what is their turnover, how are their payment history. I mean, you have to consider work and you have to consider risks of payment, overdues, etc. So at the end, it's a combination of all these parameters where you say, okay, how many people are working in your company? How many people are in sales? How many people have experience in our case, for example, the elevator industry? It could be that they are just lifting in ports or other industries. Okay, then maybe that's not so interesting for us. Or maybe yes, because they want to enter in this market. So all these things you have to go over, base, potential, etc. We have a 25, 30 point checklist, and we weigh it also in different positions. They could be active, but maybe not as much. And then we discuss it with them openly. And we say, okay, we think that in this position, this point, you should grow. I think we're happy with this. What do you think about your growth for the next years? Could you position yourselves more in this direction, on this other direction, at least from our product perspective? So we create this checklist, and then we share it together so that we define, again, we try to build a long-term relationship. So it's not like 1 year and go. We are working, and we have to be patient so that at the beginning this has to grow.
Is there like a general deal breaker for becoming a distributor?
I mean, definitely we try not to work with people that are working with our competitors. You know, in our industry, it happens that there are some traders that are like supermarkets that would have Coca-Cola and Pepsi, that would have, I don't know, the same product with different brands, and they just go to the market and say, okay, choose whatever you want. We try to build a relationship with distributors that are willing to bet on our brand. So at the end, this is a feeling from both sides that you are going to have just one distributor in this sector, so you trust us to be the right partner. And on the flip side, you have to trust that our product is the right product, and you're not going to sell every brand in the market. We can understand that if a final customer comes to you and says, okay, I just work with this one, and it's not the one that you carry. Please, can you do it for me? Okay, we can discuss some cases, but we try to feel that the way to grow the relationship is that we both believe in one another as the best partner to grow, not have multiple ones. So that would be definitely a first deal breaker. And then for sure, if the history of payments are not good nowadays, you of course, for the chain to work, everybody has to do their job, and if we supply the product on time, we expect payment on time. And now with how things are in the world, for sure, payment on time is a plus when you have a relationship with a partner, with a distributor, for sure.
On this topic, on entering having a new distributor and stuff like that, how long on the low or the high side, how long does it take from, I don't know, let's say from the step you start communicating with the distributor to becoming your distributor?
That's a good question.
Like a distributor sales cycle.
Yeah, that's it's tough to say because there are many cases. Imagine just that one distributor is handling your main competitor, and for whatever reason they are unhappy with them, payment terms, delivery terms, certain quality claims, whatever. And then you connect with them, or they come to you because they know you are, let's say, at the same level of competition. Then they would say, well, we can shift from probably one day to the next if things go okay. It's just a matter of discussing the terms, and if everyone is in agreement, in less than a month you could be working with them. That's not usually the case, but it can happen. If we're talking about from zero to working, I would say it's usually less than 3 months you can start working. It's a case of, again, depending on the culture, building that relationship, sometimes it's as easy as having a couple of Teams calls and everything is agreed. And then you just work on the pricing, on deliveries, stock, this and that. You get all the details together, and then you start working. With others, you need to do the visit. You need to sit with them. They want to introduce you to all the team. You do a training. So that can be, I would say, 3-4 months is a good time. In most cases, it's probably sooner than that, but others takes longer for sure. But on average, I would say 3-4 months is a solid.
As regions, are there differences besides the legal aspect and besides the tariffs and everything? Are there, I don't know, I'm thinking now like EMEA compared to Europe, or I don't know, Indonesia, India compared to EMEA to Europe. Are there differences in this perspective or not really?
Nowadays, I would say less because more people have export and import experience. So especially industries like automotive or like ours, elevator, which is quite similar, let's say, or learning from the automotive industry. Most people have experience in connecting with other suppliers, with manufacturers. So it has, I would say, even though we talked about the culture and different ways of building the relationship, when it comes to business, it's become more uniform and the culture is not so critical. Yes, there are parameters where you do have to work in terms of the relationship. And as you mentioned, of course, taking that aside in terms of bureaucracy, paperwork, certificates, and all things that you need, that of course has an influence, but that's more local regulations or requirements. We take that aside. On the cultural side, yes, you do need to build a rapport, you need to build a relationship, but when that is, let's say, out of the way to say, then the business wise now it's become more uniform almost everywhere, from Middle East to, like you mentioned, India, Southeast Asia, China, Russia, Europe. Yes, it's US. I would say countries maybe that are not so involved in global business are now maybe in Africa or South America and certain countries. Again, I don't want to signal anyone out. It's just that maybe they are not so experienced in this. But nowadays, you have an internet connection, you can locate almost any product in the world.
A little bit history for you, but I saw you were, as a global sales director in Gustav Wolf several years ago, you were responsible for implementing the CRM and standardizing reporting across the organization. And you're working globally. So my question is, how did you manage, or are there any points, because you have the experience? I mean, how did you balance the need of standardization of the data coming from all different markets with the local flexibility, I don't know, that are operating in different markets? And how did you combine all that, all that data into reasonable...
With patience. You have suffered integrations of ERPs or CRMs, you know what I'm talking about. There's a lot of patience involved. Well, if we start from the beginning, it's necessary, I think, to standardize, or at least be able to measure KPIs and have all the information available for everyone. That is something that I believe wholeheartedly. In the past, it used to be that most salespeople will keep all the information in their drawer and will not share with anyone because they felt that they wanted to be indispensable and they that way they can keep their job, instead of thinking, well, if the team, if the company is successful, then I will be successful. And that's always my thought and how I've developed in my whole life. So I definitely believe in this standardization and coordination of the reporting. So that was my first target. Again, this changing a little bit the culture of keeping everything to myself and not sharing. Of course, there is the view that if you manage to have all this information in-house, if there are changes in people, you can definitely introduce new members of the team in a I would say, easier and more streamlined way. That's also, of course, a reason behind it. In terms of culture, again, you have to be understanding. You need to understand that you cannot maybe ask a sales manager in China the same things that you can ask for someone in Germany or someone in the US. You need to have that flexibility. And I'm always telling my people, my colleagues and my team members that from our perspective, what you need to do is get the results. Sure, you need to get the sale, get the numbers. We measure it weekly, monthly, annually, whatever. That is definitely the target for all. But how you do it is also important. And keeping track of your visit reports, keeping track of details from, and again, culturally, it depends. Maybe in Europe, especially Central Northern Europe, they are more bullet points, ABC, that's the visit, that was it. And others maybe talk about, okay, I have the feeling, or I believe, or I think that this could be this way or the other. And you need to understand these two, maybe, I wouldn't say opposed ways, but different, let's say, in the way you can treat your relationship with a customer. For me, it's important that you write down what you have experienced, be it on a bullet point way or be it more on a letter way, and track how does that develop. If this works with our relationship in your region, fantastic. I'm totally open for that. If you just need to understand what they are expecting, have your to-do list, fantastic. If that works for you, at the end you have to be, again, you need that flexibility in your job to be able to understand that people are different and we're working with people. And if someone maybe waits for the end of the month to do all the visit reports, I don't want to be on top of him, but it needs to be done. If you need to analyze and have a sit down with them, do have a sit down. We also have team meetings based more maybe in Europe, and then some international ones where you can explore the experiences of each one and understand, okay, in my case, when I talk with my customers, I need to take them for dinner. Well, for me, I can do 4 visits in one day here in Stuttgart, and I go boom, 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 1 hour with each, finish, done. Those kinds of things are what you mentioned also on the cultural side, that you need to integrate into your systems and your processes, so that at the end you don't lose time and you don't become inefficient, for sure, but you gather all that information that I think is useful to plan the strategy, to plan the next years, even just for the sake of you understanding your team better.
I wanted to go into the direction of AI, of tech stack, but now you raised very interesting part. So I'm really curious. I mean, you have experience in managing both your sales team internally and at the same time with motivating third-party distributor sales teams all around the world. So I would not say what is the difference of leading your own sales team versus an outside one, but how do you have an advice or an experience to share on what is the best practice to do it? I mean, because you're experienced, so someone maybe entering now.
Sure.
Leading and motivating an international sales force.
That's again a good question. I think that a lot of it is common sense, which my father used to say is the less common of all senses. You need to understand how people behave. You need to understand their motivations. You need to understand how things work. I don't believe in maybe it's an old-fashioned way of the aggressive team leader or managers that are taking the whip out and just hurdling everyone in one direction. I believe more in the team side of it, understanding the strengths and weaknesses of everybody, and again listening to everyone. And I don't think I have all the knowledge and all the answers to everything. So I'm willing to always talk with anybody, from my colleagues in China, my colleagues in Germany, in the US. I don't know everything. I understand that you are there every day. You know the culture better than I do. So please enlighten me, make me learn more, and then we can both decide what is the best strategy or course of action for our next move. When you have such a spread out team, or when you have to coordinate so many distributors, unless you have the key word for me is trust. You cannot really work. And if you're going to always be looking over your shoulder and saying, is he doing a good job? Can I trust what he's doing? Do I have to be on top of him all the time? Micromanagement, I think, is, some people work fantastically with it and have everything on their head. But I think it's, especially when you're talking about a wide international team, many members in many different countries, including distributors, partners, etc., it's impossible to know everything that is going on every day with these members. It's absolutely impossible. You need to build that structure from the top to the bottom, where you can trust that they are going to do their job and they are going to get the results. Again, results are good. The way you get them has to be in line with, of course, with the strategy, and you need to adapt to how every person works and every region behaves or does business.
I will take this as a key takeaway. If you want a global international team who is functional, micromanagement doesn't work. Build the trust and a trust organization in line with your goals.
Yes, I fully believe in that, and I've been in different. The good thing about experience at the end is, yes, you learn a lot. You try to have to. In my case, I try to take the best of every manager that I've worked with, every person that I work with. I try to learn. Some things were good, some things were bad, for sure, but you learn from all of them. You have to take all of them and try to learn and see. And some good things might not work. What we were talking at the beginning, you cannot take an example from one part of the world and try to make a transplant to another one, because it might not work. But to me, in general, global terms, I think there are things that work. And I think trust and flexibility and to listen to the team members, to your partners, to your distributors, is the key, because they probably know more than you from what they are doing. They are doing it every day. They are doing it usually for a long period of time, and they know probably more than you. They can also learn. Hopefully, you start a conversation that can lead in that direction.
A practical question. I didn't think to ask it, but I have to now. You have regular meetings with your team globally. Yes. So besides pipeline and numbers, what do you discuss? How's it structured? How frequent is it? I mean, just, to get, if I am a new international sales manager, how should I structure my team meetings?
That's again the golden $1 million question. I mean, you hear about how Bezos does a meeting or how Elon Musk does a meeting. To me, I think the key is to be prepared for the meeting, not go to a meeting just to listen. And we all know that sometimes in these meetings, when you're doing it through Teams or Zoom or whatever, a lot of the people are doing work at the same time and are not listening. So you have to engage them into understanding that these meetings can be fruitful and can provide something more than just a loss of half hour or 1 hour time. So for me, the key is preparation beforehand and giving a guide of what you're looking for so that people prepare for that meeting and make it in a way that it's interesting, that other members listen to what the rest of the team are saying. So that's to me, it's key, that they don't end up tending towards the page that they have here or their phone answering an email at the same time. So and this I have to give credit to our CEO, which was in some of these meetings, and at the end, a lot of the people were presenting their slide and reading their slide, and people would read it at the beginning and then do the thing, and they were just going over what they did, and we discussed it and what is the best way to try to engage people. And it's okay, not telling what you've done every point of every visit or what you've done or giving numbers. It's more of an experience. Okay, how can we help? How can we align maybe our strategy in one way, or what did I do with one customer that maybe can apply to your customers? How can you get my experience into your own improvement? So we try to say, okay, this is what I've done, yes, but how can we all learn from this? Or what is my success story, let's say, and how can we implement it? Or what can I learn from your success stories or maybe your not so successful stories, to try to improve? And then the whole team sees it as a fruitful experience. It's that way. You have to prepare for both things. Okay, what you did and how can you engage people?
If you're willing to share, do you have like topics that are repeatable every meeting? And how often do you have like global sales team meetings with your team?
Well, let's say we have set up two types of meetings in this current company. One is say a European or EMEA meeting, and then we have an international one. I would say that sometimes, when people are traveling, it's more complicated. You have to adjust, but we try to do at least a monthly EMEA one, and then either a monthly or bi-monthly, we have an international one. It fluctuates, but we try to have it. This is always online. And then if there's any event that can align in terms of time, we try to have a face-to-face one once a year if we can. So because at the end, that's also I think important to meet the guys, to have spend time together. That's I think important.
You mentioned you're using lessons learned and successful stories on those meetings. If you're willing, or if you think of some, or you can share some, tell us a success story that you remember that might be useful for the owners and managers of SMEs that are watching this podcast. Let's put it that way.
Well, I would say at the end is no. It's just that it's at the end it's a war filled with many battles. So you have small wins, small successes, and I take all of them for sure. I don't have right now a single one that I would say. At the end, for me, the success is maybe getting a distributor to change their current supplier into for us, trying to find out, using the tools that you have as a sales. In the end, in sales, our the best time that we have is when we are successful in making a deal. That's what we live for in sales, getting a deal done. So when you feel that you have used all the tools you have in your portfolio to get that deal done, that's when you feel the best, and that's what you feel that is a success. So being able to use, again, what we mentioned at the beginning, this cultural thing, this language approach, this listening approach to understanding. Maybe I came to the meeting thinking that he was going to need just price, but because I listened to him, I understood that it's more a matter of lead time or just-in-time delivery. Again, I think it's using all those things, and then you feel this was a success. This was really what I was made to do. So I feel that a success for me is when you get a deal done because you have all your experience and all these tools that you have developed. Yes, you can. People talk about the natural born salesperson or the person that learns all these tools. I believe it's a combination of both. Yes, there are people that are natural born and are people that learn all these tools and are able to use them in the best way to obtain these successes. At the end, to me, every deal that you do gives you this hype. And for a sales, that's what we live for. In sales, you live for this hype of getting the deal done.
I know you're in a more traditional business now. because I know the hype, and we might go into a deep conversation. I think it will take much time because that's like coming from the sales in this recent period, getting the deal done, especially in a win-win way with all the tools, as you said, it's, like, it's the greatest feeling in the world.
Absolutely.
I was wondering, I mean, I know you're in a more traditional sector, but there are so many, maybe even buzzwords and flashy stuff, and a lot is changing in reality with artificial intelligence, with business intelligence tools, with SaaS software for sales and marketing. I would like your take on how are you using any, or how that influenced your, let's say, work, if you're using, or are you considering something, or what are the challenges of using AI or any other tool you might think it's important now that is helping you become competitive globally?
Yes. I think, to be honest, whoever is not using or implementing AI in some level in their company or in their everyday work, even in their personal work, is going to be behind the curve in the next years, or even in the next months. It's just moving so fast that you need to, again, this flexibility that we were talking about when you go to a customer, that has to be the same for you in your learning curve every day. And I think AI is the next big thing that we are all we'll all have to adapt in one way or another. So the sooner you learn it, the sooner you can implement it in your everyday life. You cannot put the excuse that, well, this is a very conservative or a traditional business, because you can use it in many different facets of the work. I would say, me personally, I use it constantly in terms of preparing for visits, like we mentioned before, to when you have to do some research on a country, on a region, on a customer, on I don't know, a potential partner. You, as simple as asking ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok or whatever, what are the things you should be listening for? What are the things that you should be looking for to be prepared? That, as simple as that, is helpful. Preparing even business cases, strategic plans. You can get first drafts, then use your experience, your knowledge to fine tune it. It saves you time. It saves you, at the end, time is money. You can focus on other things. So those two things for me are something that everybody should be using nowadays. And then if you want to go steps further, you can implement it some way in your CRM, in your inbox, so that every communication that you have, every interaction that you have with a customer is say funneled through some AI agent and can direct it in the right inbox. It can be as easy as, okay, if it's coming from this region, then you divert it to the responsible for that region or for your distributor, without you having to interact at all with it. Or feeding it just information, and they can generate all the reporting and all the analysis that you could probably do with a longer period of time and with nothing else to do. So all these things, I believe, should be implemented in any business, in any company, small or big. It helps you focus on other things that are necessary, and this is going to be the trend. Things that can be done digitally are going to be done by AI. Things that you need, and I was listening to Elon Musk the other day, things that you need to move atoms, that have to be done with the hand or with physically moving or talking with someone face to face. I don't think that will still disappear. So I think in sales, we have some years to go, but everything else that cannot be done digitally with interaction with a computer will still remain as physical world, but the rest will transition slowly or fast into being handled by AI agents. Yeah. And we have to accept it. It's not something, people that don't accept it will just lag for some time until either they disappear or they accept it with a delay.
I know we took more time than initially planned, but I mean, the world is changing and it's having major challenges with some activities that lower the international trade and so forth. In your view, for the next 5 years, now a little bit strategically more, but what do you see as the next major disruptive trend, whether it's technological, geopolitical, or regulatory, that export sales managers working in specialized equipment sector as you are must prepare for?
Well, this is definitely
I know this is a question,
a crystal ball question, but we have to be ready for them. I mean, if we ask our past selves in 2017, 2018, if a pandemic was going to come, probably no one would have thought about it. Wars or of course, supply chain disruptions could have been on the papers. Not that everything happened at the same time or in the same 3-4 years. Maybe that was excessive, but yes, I mean we work together with our partners and our customers in terms of risk mitigation for these kind of cases. So that's more normal. If you tell me about, I don't know, alien invasion, no one would probably prepare for that. But nowadays, yes, you have to prepare yourself for these cases where you can geopolitically have an effect in terms of routes for shipments, of the decrease in business in a certain region. I mean, in our case, we rely a lot on the construction business, because at the end we're selling, our main customers are elevator manufacturers or service providers or maintenance. And if there's no elevators, there's no need for my product. So if construction fluctuates, we are affected. So if we talk about, for example, the Chinese market and all the situations with the bankruptcy or the going down of certain developers, that has affected our business heavily. So you have to be prepared for those cases. You have to understand that also building your export department, your export sales department in your company supports the balancing of your revenue in different regions. So if a region gets affected for whatever reasons, be it locally, be it globally, a certain supply chain gets disrupted and you can divert your logistics or your sales into a different region. If one market is going better than others, or if you think that one market will go better, then focusing on that market, your efforts. That's why I believe that nowadays everybody needs to focus on the export and balancing at least your overall revenue in different markets, because if things are looking that you will have localized situations, let's say you don't know what, if it could be war, if it could be just a fight for resources, if it's maybe a situation that the ports are closed, or tariffs, or bureaucracy, or regulations. Right now we have an issue in India where there is a certification needed called BIS, where it's basically stopped everyone from outside going in there with their products, or it made it very complicated. So you have to be prepared for those things. So for me, in the next 5 years, there will be one major thing, which is what we said, the adoption or not of AI in your processes and your interactions with the rest of your customers and with the rest of the market. So that is definitely something that you need to be ready for. And for sure, supply chain is going to be like a wave, changing, coming or going in the next years, and will be affected by how relationships in China or in other parts of the world are going to happen.
Thank you for this great podcast and for being the guest. For the end, what would be the key advice or the main advice you would give to an SME or a company who has not exported yet and they are preparing to and don't know where to start from? What would your advice on how to start that? What are the points to take, or whatever advice you think is key for them before going into exports for the first time?
Yes. The first of all is, like we mentioned before, the best time to start is yesterday. They need to start moving for sure, because the local markets, the risk is too big just to depend on one market, and you need to expand. You need to balance your revenue with other regions, but also, and this is important, not do it in a blind way, because I know companies that have gone and invested time and effort and money and resources into export, and then they have lost all of that because they didn't do it in the right way. So create a plan, hire the right people. This is important. Be it a manager, be just an export specialist responsible that has the right culture fit to your company, that has, of course, the languages that we talked about that are so important, and has the knowledge and the experience with the export market. Because learning on the job, unfortunately, it's complicated. If you are starting, if you are new to the export game, you should have someone that understands that game and how to play it in the best way possible. And then don't try to overreach. Don't try to say, oh, now the whole world is going to be my oyster and I'm going to sell everywhere in the world and I'm going to go here and there. In Spain, it was very common that usually the first export will be Portugal, will be France. So nearby you can control it, or South America, where language and culture is relatively similar. So that has been always our first step. And I would suggest a similar approach to the companies. Start where you can, in a market that either because you think the size is manageable or the culture is reachable or the business culture and the business way of doing things are more relatable, or because your export manager has more experience there. But go step by step and understand that it is a process, that you need to prepare for it, that you need to be ready for it in terms of, again, the bureaucracy, the licenses, the product adjustments that you might need for the market, and understanding how the logistics will be affected to do that. So you need to prepare before you give the step. Giving the step before you're prepared, and you can do research, of course. And I'm a big advocate for doing research and preparing and knowing the market before you step into it. So invest on that research. Visit trade shows, gather import data. Anything you can find out before you give the step is always welcome. Prepare yourself to be ready and then give the step without too much time delay, because there's others doing it. There's a lot of competition nowadays, and your main competitor next door might be doing it already and has that advantage over you. Just research, preparation, and don't think that anybody else is better than you. Just go for it. Give it your best.
Thank you for being part of this podcast and being a guest. If you have any thoughts or you want to share something else about you, your company, or for the viewers, now is the time.
But I would like to definitely thank you for this opportunity. I think that it's a great idea what you're doing. I think it has a lot of potential to, I wouldn't say teach. I don't feel that I am a teacher, but I do have the experience. I do have some references and some stories that I can talk about, and I'm sure that your guests will feel also in the gaps that we all have and give their own experiences. And again, learning and being open to learn, I think, is the critical thing for anyone nowadays, because things are changing fast. And for sure, for anyone listening, if they need rope, talk to me. I'm your guy.
Thank you, Antonio, and I'm wishing you a great upcoming Christmas and holidays and a lot of success in the next year with the exports and the sales.
Same to you. Same.